Sarah Mitchell was only 23 when she found herself trapped in the service bathroom of the Harrison mansion with her 8-month-old twins, Jake and Emma, crying desperately. The new wife of billionaire Michael Harrison, the cold and cruel Victoria, had locked her in there after discovering the babies were her husband's children. Sarah had been hired as a housekeeper, but no one knew she was the secret mother of the twins Michael believed had died in an accident. As the little ones screamed from hunger and she pounded desperately against the door, Sarah couldn't imagine that Michael was about to return home, and that the sound of his children's cries would trigger a reaction that would bring down all the lies. Because when a father hears the cry of children he thought he'd lost forever, no door can stop him from reaching them. Sarah Mitchell settled her twins, Jake and Emma, in their small playpen hidden in the mansion's attic, whispering softly to calm them. At 23, this young woman had learned to live in shadows, hiding the biggest secret of her life. These 8-month-old babies were the children of Michael Harrison, the richest man in Chicago. 2 years earlier, Sarah had worked as a secretary in Michael's company. She was intelligent, beautiful, with long brown hair and green eyes that shone with determination. Michael, then 50, and married to the cold Frances, had fallen deeply in love with her. Their secret affair lasted 6 months. 6 months of hidden passion that changed both their lives forever. When Sarah discovered she was pregnant with twins, her world collapsed. Frances had just discovered the affair and threatened to financially destroy Michael if he didn't cut all ties with Sarah. Michael, terrified of losing the empire he'd built over 30 years, made the most cowardly choice of his life. He paid Sarah to disappear. But fate had other plans. 2 weeks after Sarah left Chicago, Frances died in a car accident. Michael desperately searched for Sarah, but she had vanished without a trace. What he didn't know was that Sarah had given birth in a clinic in Denver, alone and scared, hiding her identity. The twins were born premature and fought for weeks between life and death. Sarah sold everything she owned to pay for medical care, worked day and night to support them, gave up her dreams to be their mother. When the money ran out and hospitals began pressuring for payment, Sarah made the most desperate decision of her life. She returned to Chicago with a new identity, dyed blonde hair, and fake documents. She presented herself at the Harrison mansion as a housekeeper, claiming her name was Linda White. Michael didn't recognize her. The grief over losing Sarah and guilt for abandoning her had changed him, making him a broken and distracted man. For 8 months, Sarah had lived this impossible double life. During the day, she cleaned the house of the man she had loved and who had denied his own children. At night, she raised them alone in the attic, feeding them secretly, changing them in silence, singing muffled lullabies so they wouldn't be heard. Meanwhile, Michael had married Victoria Santini, a 30-year-old woman who was beautiful but heartless, interested only in his wealth. Victoria was cunning and manipulative, had married Michael for his money, and now controlled every aspect of the mansion with an iron fist. Sarah had learned to juggle schedules, invent excuses to get away, live in constant anxiety of being discovered. The twins were growing strong and beautiful, with their father's dark eyes and their mother's sweet smile. Jake was more lively and curious, Emma more calm and thoughtful, but both were the light of her life. That September morning, everything changed. Sarah was feeding the babies when she heard footsteps on the stairs leading to the attic. Her heart stopped. No one ever went up there. She quickly took the twins and hid them in the closet, whispering for them to stay quiet. It was Victoria, accompanied by her personal maid, Sylvia. They were inspecting the attic to decide how to transform it into a private spa. Sarah managed to hide behind some boxes, but her heart was beating so loud she feared it could be heard. The two women walked around the attic for a few minutes, commenting on possible modifications. When they were about to leave, Jake started crying from the closet, a thin but unmistakable cry of a hungry baby. Victoria stopped suddenly. Her eyes became sharp, suspicious. She headed toward the closet and opened it, revealing the two babies Sarah had desperately tried to keep hidden. The discovery changed everything instantly. Victoria looked at the twins, then at Sarah, and a wicked light ignited in her eyes. She had just found the winning card to destroy Michael and take possession of all his fortune. But first, she needed to understand exactly who these babies were and why a housekeeper was keeping them hidden in her husband's attic. Victoria stared at the two babies in the closet, with eyes gleaming with calculated malice. Sarah emerged from her hiding place, trembling but ready to protect her children at any cost. The tension in the attic was palpable, like electricity before a storm. The new Mrs. Harrison studied the twins' faces carefully, immediately noticing the resemblance to her husband. The same dark eyes, the same nose shape, even the mouth curve when Jake smiled. There was no doubt. These were Michael's children. Sarah knew it was over. After 8 months of secrets and sacrifices, her world was crumbling. But when she saw Victoria reach toward Emma with a possessive gesture, maternal instinct exploded with a force she didn't know she had. She positioned herself in front of the babies like a lioness protecting her cubs. It didn't matter that Victoria was the lady of the house. Didn't matter that she could destroy her with a word. No one would touch her children. Victoria laughed, a cold, sharp sound that filled the attic. She had understood the situation perfectly and was already planning how to exploit it to her advantage. If Michael had secret children, this dramatically changed the inheritance question. She had to act quickly to protect her own interests. She ordered Sylvia to get the phone and immediately call her private lawyer. Then she turned to Sarah with a tone that brooked no argument. She wanted to know everything: who she really was, when the babies were born, why she was hiding in her house. Sarah, with the twins in her arms, told the truth. She explained about the relationship with Michael, the pregnancy, the abandonment, Francis's death, the months of struggle to keep the babies alive. She spoke of the love she had felt for Michael and the pain of being rejected when she needed him most. While Sarah spoke, Victoria calculated, if these babies were really Michael's children, they represented an enormous threat to her. Under American law, they would have inheritance rights, drastically reducing what she would get in case of divorce or her husband's death. But they also represented an opportunity. Michael didn't know about the baby's existence. If she managed the situation well, she could use this information to completely manipulate him, gaining total control of the wealth. When Sarah finished telling her story, Victoria had already decided her plan. She wouldn't immediately reveal the children's existence to Michael. First, she had to arrange some things, modify the will in her favor, transfer some assets to accounts in her name only. She ordered Sarah to follow her downstairs, bringing the babies. She led her to the service bathroom, a small, windowless room on the ground floor. Then, with a quick and cruel gesture, she pushed her inside with the twins and locked the door from outside. Sarah found herself trapped with Jake and Emma, who began crying, frightened by the cramped, dark environment. She pounded desperately against the door, screaming to be let out. But Victoria had already left, probably to organize the rest of her diabolical plan. While the babies cried and Sarah desperately searched for an escape, she didn't know that Michael was returning home earlier than expected. The work meeting had ended early, and he had decided to surprise Victoria with a gift he'd bought during lunch break. But when he entered the mansion, instead of the usual silence, he heard something that froze his blood. The desperate crying of very small children, a sound that awakened buried memories and heartbreaking nostalgia for the children he had never had. Michael followed the sound through the house, his heart beating faster and faster. The crying seemed to come from the service bathroom on the ground floor. When he tried to open the door, he discovered it was locked. From inside came clearly the voice of a woman trying to calm two crying babies. What happened in the following minutes would forever change the lives of all the protagonists of this story. Because when a father hears for the first time the voice of children he didn't know he had, nothing in the world can stop him from reaching them. Michael stood motionless in front of the service bathroom door, his heart beating hard. The babies crying from inside was heartbreaking, but what shocked him was the familiar voice of the woman trying to calm them. With trembling hands, he took the spare key and opened the door. He saw a young woman on the floor, with two identical babies in her arms, crying desperately. For a moment, he didn't recognize Sarah. Blonde hair, thin face, housekeeper clothes hid her identity. But when she looked up and their eyes met, time stopped. Sarah looked at him with terror, hope, and love that had never died. Michael recognized the woman he had desperately searched for, the one he had cried for in lonely nights. The twins stopped crying, sensing the change. Michael observed them carefully. His same eyes, his mouth, even Jake's gestures. The truth hit him like lightning. They were his children, the ones Sarah carried when he sent her away. Michael knelt in front of Sarah without speaking. Tears streamed down his face, looking at the babies he had never known. 8 months of lost life. 8 months when they had grown without a father. When he reached toward Jake, the baby grabbed his finger, and Michael burst into a sob held back too long. Victoria arrived, attracted by the silence. Seeing Michael kneeling in front of the twins, she understood her plan had failed. She tried to control the situation by lying shamelessly, but Michael wasn't even listening. Sarah found strength to tell about the difficult pregnancy, premature birth, months fighting to keep them alive, the desperate decision to return as a housekeeper to stay close to him. Michael understood he had lost everything.
Enjoying the story? Give it a little like, and don't forget to subscribe. Now then, let's carry on.
The woman he loved, and children who grew up in poverty while he lived in luxury. Victoria attempted a final move, accusing Sarah of fraud, but Michael looked at her with disgust. He didn't need tests to know they were his children. Michael stood up from the floor with Jake in his arms, the baby instinctively clinging to his never-known father's shirt. The magnate had red eyes, but the most determined look Sarah had ever seen. He turned to Victoria with cold, controlled voice. He ordered her to pack her bags. The marriage was over. He never wanted to see her again after locking a mother with 2 small children. Victoria tried to protest, talking about marital duties and shared assets. But Michael held both twins, looking at them like miracles from heaven. Victoria's desperation turned to malice. She threatened to reveal the story of illegitimate children to the newspapers. She had underestimated Michael Harrison. He immediately called his lawyer and security. Within hours, Victoria had a ready divorce agreement and clear understanding that if she tried to harm the family, he would destroy her. While Victoria packed, Michael devoted himself completely to Sarah and the twins. He took them to the master suite, ordered new cribs, called Chicago's best pediatrician. Sarah felt overwhelmed. After months of sacrifice, she was suddenly treated like a queen. But what struck her most was seeing Michael with the babies. He transformed completely, speaking softly to them, cradling them with infinite tenderness. That evening, after the twins fell asleep, Michael knelt before Sarah asking forgiveness. He had been a coward, chosen money over love, would never forgive himself for abandoning her. Sarah cried, telling of her pain, but confessed she had always loved him. She had returned because she couldn't stay away from the man she loved. Michael took her in his arms, feeling complete for the first time in 2 years. He had a real family, built on love. Watching over the twins that night, he promised never to let anything separate his family again. 3 months after discovering the twins, the Harrison mansion was completely transformed. The elegant but cold silence that characterized the house during the marriage with Victoria had given way to the sounds of a real family. Laughter, lullabies, baby cries that meant life instead of loneliness. Michael had taken a sabbatical from his company to dedicate himself completely to Sarah and the twins. For the first time in 30 years of career, he had discovered there were things more important than work and profits. Every morning he woke up excited at the idea of spending the day with his children, seeing them grow, learning to be a father. Jake and Emma had grown rapidly in recent weeks. With regular feeding and constant medical care, they had recovered ideal weight and showed increasingly distinct personalities. Jake was curious and lively, always ready to smile and explore everything around him. Emma was more reflective and calm, preferred to observe before acting, but when she smiled, she lit up the whole room. Sarah was blooming day by day. The thinness and fatigue of difficult months were disappearing, replaced by the serenity of a woman who had finally found peace. Michael courted her as if it were the first time, bringing her flowers every day, organizing romantic dinners after the babies fell asleep. One evening, while watching the twins sleep in their luxury cribs, Michael took Sarah's hand and led her to the garden. Under the pergola, lit by small lights, he knelt, pulling out a ring he had specially created for her. It wasn't a traditional proposal. Michael asked her forgiveness once more for abandoning her, promised he would never again put anything before their family, swore he would spend the rest of his life making her happy. Then he asked her to marry him, not for convenience or interest, but for pure love. Sarah said yes with tears in her eyes, not for money, not for economic security, but because she loved that man, despite everything that had happened. Because she wanted Jake and Emma to grow up with a present father, and because she believed in second chances. The wedding was celebrated 2 months later in the mansion's private chapel, with only their closest loved ones present. Sarah wore a simple but elegant dress, Michael a dark suit that made him look years younger. But the real protagonists of the ceremony were Jake and Emma, carried by the nanny during the celebration. When the priest asked if there were impediments to the marriage, Jake started laughing loudly, as if approving what was happening. Everyone laughed, and Michael felt it was the happiest moment of his life. The honeymoon was different from any other. Instead of leaving for exotic destinations, Michael, Sarah, and the twins spent 2 weeks at the family estate in the Hamptons. Perfect days spent taking long walks with the babies, cooking together, making plans for the future. Michael had decided to reduce his work commitments to be more present. He had promoted his most trusted collaborators to positions of greater responsibility and started working mainly from home. He wanted to be there for every important moment. First steps, first words, all the small daily miracles he had already missed in the twins' first months. One evening, while sitting in the living room with the twins playing on the carpet, Michael looked at his family and realized how much his life had changed. A year before, he was a lonely man, married to a woman he didn't love, obsessed with work and professional success. Now he had everything he had always desired without knowing it. A woman who loved him for who he was, 2 children who were his greatest joy, a house full of life and happiness. 2 years after that dramatic day in the service bathroom, the Harrison mansion resonated with the laughter of Jake and Emma running through the garden chased by Michael. The twins, now almost 3 years old, had become 2 lively and intelligent children, full of energy and curiosity. Jake had inherited his father's determined character and his mother's sensitivity. He was a born leader, always ready to explore new corners of the mansion, ask questions about everything he saw, invent fantastic games. Emma was more reflective but equally curious, preferred to observe before acting, had an incredible memory, and loved being read stories. Sarah had completed her psychology degree with top marks, achieving the dream she had to set aside years before. Michael had been by her side during every exam, taking care of the twins when she had to study, organizing the house so everything worked perfectly. On graduation day, Jake and Emma were in the front row with flower bouquets they had personally chosen for Mom. Michael's transformation had been extraordinary. The ruthless businessman had become a caring father who never missed an important moment in his children's lives. He had reorganized his entire company to work mainly from home, installed an office with windows overlooking the garden where the children played. Every morning started with family breakfast, helping Sarah prepare the twins for the day. He had learned to change diapers, prepare baby food, sing lullabies. His employees were shocked to see their boss arrive at meetings with baby food stains on his shirt, and he didn't care. Sarah had opened a small counseling practice in the mansion, specializing in helping single mothers and families in difficulty. Her personal experience made her particularly empathetic with those going through difficult times, and soon her reputation spread throughout Chicago. One spring evening, while the twins slept peacefully in their rooms full of toys and books, Michael and Sarah sat in the garden where 2 years before he had asked her to marry him. They were planning a summer vacation to Greece, their first real family vacation. Michael looked at his wife, illuminated by the soft candlelight, and took her hand. He told her that every day he thanked heaven for giving him a second chance. If Victoria hadn't discovered the twins, if she hadn't locked them in that bathroom, maybe he would never have known them. Sarah smiled, remembering that terrible moment that had become the most beautiful of their lives. Destiny had wanted everything to go exactly as it should. Even the pain and separation had served a purpose. They had made their love stronger and more aware. That night, while checking on the children before going to sleep, they found Jake and Emma sleeping, embraced, in the same bed. They had moved during the night to stay close, as they often did. Michael and Sarah watched them in silence, moved by that spontaneous demonstration of brotherly love. At that moment, they realized they had created something wonderful. Not just a family, but a model of love, forgiveness, and second chances. The twins were growing in an environment where love was the main rule, where problems were discussed instead of hidden, where every family member was precious and respected. Michael had learned that true wealth isn't measured in dollars or properties, but in children's laughter, wife's hugs, moments of family peace. Sarah had discovered that true love knows how to wait, knows how to forgive, and knows how to transform even the greatest pain into something beautiful. The following year brought a surprise that made the family even more complete. Sarah discovered she was pregnant with a girl. Michael cried with joy when she told him, and Jake and Emma were thrilled at the idea of having a little sister. Grace was born on a sunny morning, surrounded by the love of parents who had learned not to take anything for granted, and 2 older brothers who had been waiting for her for months. The Harrison family was finally complete. When evening came and Michael watched Sarah nursing Grace while Jake and Emma played at her feet, he understood this was his life's greatest success. Not companies, not money, not social prestige. That family united by love was his most beautiful masterpiece. Sarah often thought about how strange destiny was. If she hadn't been so desperate as to hide in Michael's mansion as a housekeeper, if Victoria hadn't been so cruel as to lock her in that bathroom, if Michael hadn't come home that exact day, maybe the twins would have grown up never knowing their father. But everything had gone exactly as it should. Love had found its way through pain. Forgiveness had won over resentment, and a family that seemed destroyed forever had reunited stronger than before. Because sometimes you have to get lost to find yourself. You have to suffer to appreciate happiness. And you have to have the courage to forgive, to be able to start over. And when love is true, no obstacle can stop it forever. Like if you believe true love can overcome any obstacle. Comment which moment of the story moved you most. Share to inspire those who still believe in the power of forgiveness. Subscribe for more stories of families reunited after the storm. Sometimes you have to hit rock bottom to rise stronger than before. Sometimes doors that close serve to open the right ones. And sometimes the most painful secrets become the truths that save. Because a family's love is worth more than any wealth in the world.